Thank you, Aminur Rahman, for your nice delivery. I think it's time for our another special guest. He's our Sumit Mukerji, sir. Sir, can you hear me? Sir, please unmute your MIC.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
এখন শুনতে পাচ্ছো সুকান্ত?
হ্যাঁ স্যার
শোনা যাচ্ছে তো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার
Can you hear me now?
right sir
Yes. Okay.
Sir, can I give some 2 or 3 words for you, sir?
As you what jai.
Sir, now we have I'm very happy to welcome Professor Sumit Mukerji, Director, Center for Studies of Bengali Diaspora at University of Kalyani, West Bengal, and Professor, Department of Political Science in Kalyani University. And sir has specialization in Netaji Subhash and Indian Freedom Movement, conflict resolution and peace studies, diaspora studies, and political thought. And he has the experience of Dean, Faculty of Arts and Commerce, University of Kalyani, Dean, Faculty of Education, University of Kalyani, September 2013 to 19. Head, Department of Political Science, University of Kalyani, 2008 to 10, 2012 to 2014. But other information is very important. Is a recipient of Fulbright Nehru Award and for Education Administrator Seminar 2015 from October 2024, 2015 to November 8, 2015. As a delegate from India, he visited Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Boston University, Northeastern University, University of Massachusetts, Simmons College, and for Jam University, Bruns Community College. He is a membership of academic bodies like Fulbright Alumni, International Economic Development Research Center, Indian Political Science Association, Indian Academy of Social Science, Indian History Congress, Institute of Historical Studies, Corpus Research Institute. Now the stage is yours, sir. Please, sir.
Thank you, Shukanto. And I think I am audible to all.
Right, sir. Yes.
Can everybody hear me? Oh.
Yes, sir.
Just to begin with a very personal recollection. Shortly before I was Shukanto's teacher in Avianshil College, Kuch Bihar, he had not yet joined as a student of undergraduate. I attended a seminar in Jalpaiguri, Anando Chandra College. That was in 2001. I think Shukanto joined in 2002.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken. Right.
Right, sir. Right.
That seminar was on human rights. There, a young researcher, I think she was at that time, I'm not sure whether she was a teacher or not, I don't distinctly remember, but today she is a university teacher. In her presentation, she referred to the human rights of soldiers. And she felt that there was absolutely no provision to ensure or safeguard the dignity of soldiers as human beings. And she referred to the hard life of soldiers who had to carry enormous burdens of haversacks on their shoulders, which she regarded as a violation of human rights. There was at that time a very high-level official of a university who is now a registrar of a university. Both the names shall remain anonymous. This gentleman then intervened, though not publicly, but he told me that soldiers do not have any rights at all. Now, after how many years? 19 years today, this is the seminal question with which I would like to start my deliberations. And I shall do so in the context of Indo-Chinese relations in recent times. How far are democratic values respected? And as you know, human rights is a central, essential ingredient of democracy. So let us, without any digression, straight away address the question as to whether soldiers at all have any human rights. Now, as per the Geneva Convention and the UN Human Rights Convention, Article 12, Clause 2, all kinds of weapons of torture are strictly prohibited against the prisoners of war. Belligerent parties often take soldiers captive and they are called prisoners of war. But under no circumstances can any weapon of torture be used against them. Then international humanitarian law, unequivocally enunciated in the Geneva Convention of 1949, followed by the additional protocols under Part 2, Section 1, Article 35, 1977. It is clearly stated that the use of such weapons is totally unauthorized during international armed conflicts. What happened during the latest standoff between India and China at Galwan? What were the weapons used by China? As you all know, firearms were strictly prohibited, and neither side resorted to the use of firearms. But that did not diminish the brutality and the barbarity of the atrocities that were perpetrated, at least on the side of China. No such horrendous atrocity was reported from the Indian side. The Chinese used batons with spike and iron rods with barbed wire. And as you know, I think 20 Indian soldiers were killed, and I think 35 soldiers on the Chinese side. The exact number is not known. Now, the former Deputy National Security Advisor, Satish Chandra, has gone on record saying, we must expose China before the world and show that it is not a civilized state with no respect for human rights. And India must support its cause on the international arena and be more vocal on the issues of human rights violation by China. And the PLA violated the Geneva Conventions using medieval methods of torture, using clubs to attack, kill, and emasculate the Indian soldiers on the 15th of June, 1920. Mr. Subramaniam Swamy said at a foreign correspondent's press conference that this kind of barbarity and violation of international law should be widely reported in the international community. The fact of the matter is that even during the 1962 war, China had brazenly violated the Geneva Convention. I shall refer to a case study soon. During that conflict, 3,942 soldiers were made to march to Tibet and kept at 3 camps at Drawa Gumpa, Taku Gumpa, and Chenji, and all accepted principles of civilized conduct in the treatment accorded to the sick, soldiers, and the prisoners of war were violated. And a memorandum was sent to the International Committee of the Red Cross listing the breaches of violation of various clauses of the Geneva Convention. Now, many Indian soldiers were taken aback. They were caught unawares. And the Chinese soldiers also allegedly used nail-studded rods. And they carried out deceptive and savage attacks to the point of mutilation also. And China is also reported to have used thermal imaging drones to trace Indian soldiers who were scattered throughout the treacherous terrain. Now, regarding this, but just to point out the other side of the story, the contrast, during the Chumar clash between India and China in 2013, when a Chinese officer fell down from a cliff. He was rescued by the Indian army and treated and then repatriated. And so far as this act of China is concerned, Lieutenant General Dipendra Singh Hoda, the former general officer commanding in chief of India's Army's Northern Command, including Eastern Ladakh, has gone on record saying, "I have never seen anything like this." Now to go on to 1962, to go back to 1962. Here I refer to the memoirs of Major J.S. Rathore. The name of the book is Indian Wars as Seen Through Soldiers' Eyes. Now, he says that in 1962, we were surrounded by Chinese troops and then taken towards Namkachu, where we, that means the soldiers, were made to walk across hilly terrain till about midnight on October 20. On the 21st of October, we were taken to a vacated Tibetan village in covered vehicles and housed in dirty, vacated Tibetan mud houses. And what was the menu apart from these dilapidated habitation? What was the menu? Well, that was equally dreadful. The menu was rice and rice without vegetables. Water was required to be fetched from a nala 1 kilometer away. After 15 days, radish was supplied without any condiment. It is like supplying vegetables without any masala. And occasionally dry meat of sheep or goat was supplied. No arrangement for shaving or cutting of hair. Then he says that we had to bear with stinking mud houses with dried hay spread across the floor. 10 to 12 prisoners were accommodated in each hut, provided with thin woolen mattresses and a quilt, one blue woolen coat, a pair of pajamas, one white shirt, then canvas shoes and a cap. After 2 months, the wounded soldiers were sent home, and through them, he says that we could communicate with our families. At least we could convey to our families the information that we were alive. Then he says, we were not treated as per Geneva Protocol, and not even 1/10 of its stipulations were followed. Now what followed was even more atrocious, if not outrageous. To mislead the world about the humane treatment, humane quote unquote, meted out by the Chinese to the Indian POWs, the Chinese on 26 January, note the date, 1963, planned an entertainment and sports program followed by a barkhana at night. And what was the plan? That photographs would be taken and they would be sent to reporters from foreign countries. Now, Major Rathore wanted to thwart this insidious propaganda. So he said that I called the Jawans of 17 para every regiment and I told them not to attend the barkhana. That means that big feast. The Chinese officers were furious and they immediately started inquiring as to at whose instance did the Jawans desist from attending that barkhana. And he says then, and they wanted to inquire, we wanted to know who was the originator of this plot. Then Major Rathore says that on 30th of January, 1963, I was summoned to face an inquiry by a board of Chinese officers. It was like facing a court of law. And he says that I was treated like an accused. And then I explained that participation in any function on the auspicious day of Republic Day would tantamount to betrayal of my country. The Chinese officers then singled him out for harassment, and for 15 days he was subjected to rigorous questioning before lunch, and he was allowed to leave after dinner. One day, an interpreter asked him to meet him at an isolated house at 6 p.m. Major Rathore reached the spot but found that the interpreter had gone to watch a Chinese movie in an open theater. When after he returned, Major Rathore complained. He used some very offensive and derogatory remarks against India. And unable to control himself any longer, General Rathore pushed him to the floor. The next day, he was taken to a Tibetan Gumfa 400 kilometers away, where the Chinese camp commander apologized and made the interpreter shake hands with him. It was good luck for Major Rathore. I don't know whether he remembered Tagore's lines, Koruna tomar rohibe morome gatha. I don't know. But I think that is what must have gone through his mind. Now, today, so much for 1962, and that same tradition is once again manifested in this latest confrontation at Kalyani. Now, what is going on internally on the domestic front? Now, the bat woman, as she was called, Shi Zhengli, had allegedly fled to Paris and had handed over information about COVID-19 to the United States. Now, she is reported to have told the Global Times that there is no virus prepared in the Wuhan laboratory and that she was not in Paris, she was in China. But there's every reason to believe that this belated confession was extorted from her. Because why should this confession come after 6 months? Then 8 Chinese doctors who had expressed themselves on COVID-19 were not allowed to make public their version. Li Wenliang, the ophthalmologist who spoke in public about COVID-19, was sued in court on 13th of January 2020. And can you imagine? He had to confess his guilt, giving an undertaking. Then COVID testing samples were destroyed. Now, this doctor was the first to issue warnings. And on the 30th of December 2019, the police asked him not to issue false statements. He was summoned to the Public Security Bureau, where he was made to sign a letter accusing him of making false comments which had severely disturbed the social order. How further can intimidation go? Now, I shall come to it later. Now, I think I've spoken for 15 minutes. I have, I think, 15 minutes more. Shukanto, don't hesitate to stop me if I overstep the time limit.
No, sir, please.
Okay. Now, I have a very important issue to discuss. Is there any direct connection between public opinion and foreign policy in the Chinese context? Theoretically, yes. Public opinion is definitely a determinant of foreign policy. But is it really a driving force behind Chinese foreign policy? Now, the analysts have attributed the assertiveness, the recent assertiveness of Beijing in international relations to the rising tide of nationalism at home. And Beijing often plays the public opinion card, the will of the majority. But the point is that the government has a critical means of shaping public opinion in China. And the public has relatively very little scope, if any scope at all, to express an independent political opinion. So this leads us to another question. Does public opinion shape foreign policy in China, or is it shaped by it? Now, the facts are as follows. The Chinese public relies overwhelmingly on the official media for daily information. And the CPC and the government determine what information will be available to the public. And they have absolute authority over what the public will read. So Alexis de Tocqueville had stated that there should be unfettered flow of information. But here, the substance, the content of information is determined by the government. And MFA and the Xinhua News Agency jointly decide the content and tone of news reports to ensure that they do not deviate from the official position. And the alternative sources of information, say like the internet or the commercial media, are strangulated. Now, in a country without a free media, independent public opinion is a myth, if not a joke. Now, in its communique issued in 2013 by the CCP on the current state of the ideological sphere, affirmed unwavering adherence to the party's control of the media. The fact of the matter is that there is no meaningful civil society in China. There is no people's power. The NGOs are required to register and work in alignment with the official agencies. There is no space for independent criticism, which is constricted. There is inter-surveillance system. There are some groups which have the potential to criticize and compete with the CCP, but they are countered with pressure and intimidation, and silence is often purchased, or they are subjected to censorship. Some grassroots activism is allowed, but that is more of a show. And the moment it becomes ominous, immediately it is suppressed. Now, it is not the case with India. You know, the Dalai Lama, the granting of asylum to the Dalai Lama was largely dictated by public opinion. It was also the inimical anti-China public opinion which forced Nehru to change his erstwhile soft policy towards China. And that was the largest single factor why India did not sponsor the resolution on the admission of the PRC to the UN at the 15th session of the General Assembly in 1960. And had it not been for this hostile public opinion, Nehru, even after the slap on the face he got in 1962, perhaps they would not have scrapped diplomatic ties with China. And as you must be knowing, that the ouster of Krishna Menon from the defense ministry was largely due to hostile public opinion. He became a villain in the estimation of the public. It will serve no purpose now to debate or deliberate on who really was responsible. Obviously, one person cannot be made a scapegoat, but as defense minister, Krishna Menon's responsibility, he could not be absolved of his responsibility for the debacle. But maybe he might have been retained had it not been for the extremely adverse domestic public opinion and the resentment that had grown against him. Now, to come back to the death of Dr. Lai Wenliang, the wave of anger and grief flooded the social media. Two hashtags, Wuhan government owes Dr. Lai Wenliang an apology, and we want freedom of speech. These were the two hashtags, but both were censored. Now, BBC searched Weibo, that social media platform, and discovered that hundreds of thousands of comments had been wiped out. Why? Simply because the government is afraid. Only a handful of critical comments now remain, and many of which do not directly name the deceased doctor. After all, as you know, he was a victim of COVID-19, and he has been proved correct. But the mounting anger and distrust continues. Today, there are indications of disenchantment in the social media. Stephen McDonnell, the BBC News Beijing, in his article, An Epic Political Disaster, says that the death of Dr. Lai Wenliang was a heartbreaking moment for his country. It lays bare the worst aspects of China's command and control system. If your response to a dangerous health emergency is for the police to harass a doctor, then your structure is obviously broken. Certainly, there is something rotten. And the Chinese citizens too are frustrated over the reticence of the Chinese government regarding the exact number of Chinese casualties in the Galwan clash. They are rather full of appreciation for the transparency of the Indian government and the respect they have shown to the dead soldiers and who have defended the country with their life, sacrificing their life. So we find praise for the high degree of solidarity of the Indian nation, saying we should learn from India. And there are trenchant criticisms like China can only play tricks on the outside and suppress opinion on the inside. And then there is also a sinister foreboding that if our casualties are greater than those of the Indians, public opinion will not be conducive to China. Now, two more points before I conclude. There are two more issues. I think I have about 8 to 9 minutes. I am constantly looking at the bottom of the computer, that my laptop on the right side. I think I have 8 to 9 minutes. Now, is there any modicum of socialism in China? This very morning, an article appeared where the writer says that China has been prospering, going from strength to strength, and the whole world is wondering as to where is the magic behind this. And he has quoted Raghuram Rajan saying in 2016 that in the 60s, the Indian economy was superior to China. Today, the Chinese economy is 5 times greater than India. And he has also quoted Mr. Rahul Gandhi saying last year that India generates employment for 450 people in 24 hours, while China generates 50,000, the employment for 50,000 people in 24 hours. Now, the question is, between wars and peace, is the situation exactly the same after COVID? The Financial Times gives us a different picture, saying that the youth, a section of the youth in China is now gripped by a mental crisis. And there was a depression in China. Maybe all these facts are being obfuscated deliberately. Local market has been reduced by 20%. Urban unemployment has increased by 6%.
Mr. Butterson, can you please mute your audio and video? Our program is disturbing.
Sorry, sir.
Sir.
Sorry for the disturbance, sir.
Okay, can I continue?
Yes,
I'll continue now. Okay, right. Now, now, as I'm about to conclude, what is China's track record so far as protection of human rights is concerned? The mass killing at Tiananmen Square on the 4th of June 1989 is now history. On the now 13th July 2020 marked the third death anniversary of the human rights activist Liu Xiaobo. After he won the Nobel Prize, do you know the reaction of the Xinhua agency? It said that awarding of Nobel Prize to this person was an uncivil intrusion into the legal sovereignty of China. And what was his crime? Participation in the agitation for human rights at Tiananmen Square. He was imprisoned for 19 months on the charge of abetting a counter-revolutionary movement. He was sent to a labor camp in 1996 for 3 years. Then in 2008, he drafted a Charter of Rights, which contained more than 10,000 signatures. Then on the 23rd of June 2009, he was again arrested and tortured. In his works, The Future of Free China and Chinese Politics, he has shown how he fought for the independence of judiciary, rule of law, and end of one-party rule. And he has described himself as the last victim of endless inquisition. Now, Louis Edgar Wheeler Snow, the wife of Edgar Snow, the author of Red Star Over China, wrote from Switzerland to the New York Times that the death of this Nobel Prize laureate, Liu Zhibao, after years of incarceration, is another black mark over China's human rights record. And today, what we have in China is not socialism, only aggressive state capitalism, expansionism, imperialism, and economic neocolonialism. Now, the legitimacy, now the last part, now I'm coming to the last part of my presentation. Now, the legitimacy of the CCP is based on a contrast between enlightened leadership. That is what they are projecting under the presidency of Xi Jinping and the despotism of old China. Now, Yuan Shikai was the first president of the Chinese Republic. Now, he allegedly betrayed Republican principles. Now, he became very unpopular when he tried to project himself as an emperor in 1915. Obviously, as you know, republic means total denial of monarchy. So here he was trying to project himself as an emperor. Now, the point is that uh, today, Mr. Xi Jinping, without categorically using the term emperor, is really projecting himself as an uncrowned emperor of Beijing. Is he not? Isn't he? Just see, today there is no time limit to the presidential term. And this was announced without much publicity. It was surreptitiously announced as one of the many constitutional amendments. No public discussion was allowed. And he was allowed to perpetuate his overarching dominance over the Chinese system. Now, the Chinese middle class criticized this move in the social media, only to find that all the sensitive terms which they had used had been censored. Now, any reference to emperor was blocked on Weibo. Now, you say, many in China today oppose this kind of strongman leadership. But the point is that individual popularity is sometimes more important than constitutional principles. Now, you know, when Yao Shikai declared himself to be an emperor, many Chinese intellectuals were affronted by it. But the public in the heart, the majority of the Chinese public, did not really find this very offensive because they were not really against the existence of emperors. Why? Then why did he become unpopular? Because he could not deliver. Because he lost his legitimacy in the estimation of the people. And his attempts to improve China's political and economic stature failed and faltered. But look at Xi Jinping's role. China is enjoying prosperity, stability. At least China did enjoy prosperity and stability. And his anti-corruption campaign also did produce an impact. But this was directed against his opponents. And public dissent has been totally smashed, stymied. Today, many young people are furious at the way the civil society in China is being obliterated. But they do not represent a broad spectrum of public opinion. And there is comprehensive control over media and information, as I have stated earlier. During Yuan Shikai, this was unimaginable. Can you imagine? There was a dynamic press at that time. And the Chinese daily Guofeng, in protest against the declaration of Yang Shikai as himself as emperor, Guofeng daily kept the left front page blank in protest against this. This kind of protest by a newspaper is beyond imagination today. Now, Clive Hamilton and Merrick Olberg, in hidden hand exposing how Chinese Communist Party is reshaping the world, say that it is wishful thinking to take it for granted that democratic freedoms have history on their side. They are saying that universal human rights, democratic practice, and the rule of law have powerful enemies, and China under the Communist Party is arguably the most formidable. They go on to say that the threat posed by the CCP affects the right of all to live without fear. Many Chinese people living in the West, along with Tibetans, the Uyghurs, then the Falun Gong practitioners and Hong Kong democratic activists are on the hit list of the CCP. And they live in a constant state of fear. When publishers, filmmakers, and theater managers try to censor opinions that might hurt the feelings of the Chinese people, immediately free speech is denied. And the Damocles' sword is hanging over their head all the time. A simple tweet that upsets Beijing costs someone his job. Beijing's growing system of surveillance, including cyber intrusion and filming of citizens attending lawful protests, indicates the violation of personal privacy in the extreme form. Nikki Haley, an ex-US ambassador to the UN, has forecasted that if freedom is curbed, man is bound to rebel. But you see, if there is delivery of service, if quality of life is ensured. People normally do not care much for things like dictatorship and freedom of speech, so long as quality of life is ensured. Now, even under Hitler, some progress was achieved by Germany, as you know. Discipline was there. National life was established on a disciplined foundation. But today, Hitler is almost demonized in Germany. But actually, the point is that, uh, according to a recent revelation by the Morgan Asset Management, China, even during COVID time, has recorded a rate of growth of 3.2%, a rise in the rate of growth. And according to Marcella Chow, this will continue for the next 3 months. Well, but the point is, there's another side of the picture also. Perhaps this is being deliberately hidden because only the rosy side is being projected and the seamy side is being deliberately hidden. So one cannot know whether this prognostication of Nikki Haley will come true or not. But history testifies that if the spirit of man is enchained, sometime or the other, the soul of humanity will revolt, saying, "We shall not be shackled by the fear of the king of the slaves, or else how are we to unite with our king and realize what is within ourselves? Mora noi badha noi, ত্রাসের রাজা, ত্রাসের দাসের রাজা, ত্রাসের দাসত্বে, নইলে মোদের রাজা শনে, মিলব কি সত্ত্বে." I think Tagore is still our guiding light. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sumit Mukherji, a respected Professor, Department of Political Science, Kalyani University. And sir, you have touched all the point, and your topic is very interesting: democracy in Indo-Chinese relation, experiences, exposure, and exercise. I think, sir, participant, if any participant want to ask any,
করুক, এখন প্রশ্ন করুক।
Acha. Participants, it's open to all. Sir, one question from Mohammad Rezaul Korim.
What is it?
He's our resource person, and
Yes, yes.
he said that aggressive attitude of China in recent time, should India change foreign policy, especially towards her neighboring countries? Anyways, thanks, sir, for your smart discussion on different angle.
And they change policy towards neighboring countries.
Neighboring countries, like
Nepal, definitely yes, Nepal, because China is trying to sort of drive a wedge between India and Nepal. Bhutan, not so much, because Bhutan has not done anything anti-Indian so far. China is trying to cultivate Bangladesh also, trying to sort of create a kind of a grand coalition against India. I don't think India should antagonize anyone. India should be tactful and diplomatic in a dealings with the foreign countries. And even towards China, I think I'm not in favor of scrapping all ties with China, but there should be no appeasement. There should be no cowardly withdrawal of kind of, showing the back to China, because the more you sort of give in to them, if you give them an inch, they will ask for a mile.
Right, sir. Right. I think Mohammad Rezaul Karim will get the answer, which from Bangladesh, our respected resource person. Sir, thank you. And sir, I have one question. As a student, I have one question, sir. It's a very difficult, sir, thing to predict Indo-Chinese relation or any foreign policy, sir. But my question is that in future, as far as our social media is concerned, as far as our electronic media is concerned, they are always focusing on the negative side of the Indo-Chinese relation or any relation. Is it something contradictory to the present situation or the actual situation? Sir, is there any gap, sir?
No, Shukanto, the point is that, let me tell you, I'll tell you something very interesting. You see, today, the situation is such, the bitterness generated by this Galwan clash and China's constant, going back on her words has really created a very bitter situation. But as I told you, this very day I read a newspaper article which puts it the other way around, saying that things should be sorted out through dialogue. And I'm also a believer in that. Actually, you see, what you have just stated is partly true. I agree, Shubhanto. but there is a reason behind it. You see, I don't know whether you have recently heard some Indian army officers say that they just don't believe China. And China is, obstinately or resolutely putting its foot down and not withdrawing as desired from Eastern Ladakh. And that is creating a credibility gap. So actually, I think what you are saying, I think this negative projection will end, but there should be some more forward movement reciprocity from the Chinese side. This is my view. But you are right, Shiva. Any other question?
Any other question from participants?
এটা কেউ যদি বাংলায় করতে চান করতে পারে।
Sir, our Pritha ma'am is with us, Pritha Pandit Roy Chaudhary.
হ্যাঁ, পৃথা বলো। এটা বাংলাতেও হতে পারে যদি কেউ চায়।
No, Shumita, I have nothing to ask you. I just thankful to you to offer such a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
আরে এটা বলার জন্য তুমি আবার পাবলিকলি বললে, ওটা কিচ্ছু না। আর কেউ কিছু বলবে?
না।
প্রশ্ন আছে? সুকান্ত,
no question.
কেউ কোনো প্রশ্ন নেই তাহলে? আমি তাহলে একটু বাংলাতেই শেষে দেবো। সুকান্ত আমার বহুদিনের পুরনো ছাত্র, আমার ভীষণ প্রিয় সুকান্ত, আমি না বলতে পারি না, তাই আমি এই শেষটা আমি বাংলাতেই বলে শেষ করছি। আমি এই অনুষ্ঠানের সর্বান্তক সাফল্য কামনা করি। সুকান্ত অবিশ্রাম পরিশ্রম করছে। পৃথাও আমার অনুজ প্রতিম চন্দ্রশেখর পণ্ডিতের স্ত্রী। চন্দ্রশেখর আমার অত্যন্ত স্নেহভাজন, পৃথাও আমার অত্যন্ত স্নেহভাজন। সকলকার সম্মিলিত প্রয়াসে এই তোমাদের এই অনুষ্ঠান, এই ধরনের ওয়েবিনার আরো তোমরা করো, এটা সফল হোক। সর্বে সর্বত্র নন্দতু।
Thank you, sir. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and from the IQC Birpara College and Department of Sociology and IQC Coachbihar College, Department of Political Science. We are thankful to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shukanta. Bhalo theko.
Thank you.